Thank you, Larry. I've been embroiled in talking about spelling when nobody else wanted to. I kind of got that job, and people asked me to talk about spelling. And I've got interested in it over the years because I feel like Kathy, I'm passionate about words and passionate about children being successful and passionate about children doing the work. And so the work I want to share with you today is about spelling. When it matters, we're going to talk about some myths, and we're also going to talk about ways to help kids to do better. Now, myth number one is we don't teach spelling anymore. It doesn't matter. Well, sometimes it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you text. It doesn't matter when you're a fledgling writer. It doesn't matter if you're making a grocery list. It doesn't matter if you're a lovely grade 1 child and the filling in vice principal, who was me, just arrived a day before Valentine's. You want to send her a Valentine anyway, so you come to the door, you knock on the door and say, "Happy Valentine's Day" to the filling in vice principal. Now, I did not discourage her by telling her that principal was misspelled, because I think the love in her heart would have died instantly. And so I just was glad that somebody thought of me at Valentine's Day. It matters when it's public. It's really important when you pay for a sign that you actually spell it correctly. The school that's second to none, I think, will never be first, because they haven't even learned how to spell second. And when you're having a literacy night on a very large sign, it doesn't say much for your literacy when you misspell it.
The caretaker did it.
It matters when it's political. Kathleen Wynne had a speech that was ground to a halt because government was misspelled. And the journalists, who do spell correctly, would not leave it alone. So she actually borrowed a pen and put the N in, and then they let her get on with speaking. So it really matters when it's political. It matters when it's published. Sometimes misspelling interferes with reading, and so we really want to give children the chance to spell it correctly and take it to publication. This is a boy who wrote, "Just when you thought that fall would never end, you saw, amidst the colorful leaves, a little bit of white, the first snowflake to touch the voice of winter." And myth number two is there's absolutely no logic to spelling, and students are lost in a maze of words, so why do we even try? Actually, that's totally untrue. There's a lot of logic to English spelling. Patterns are key. In my book, I talk about the 3 major patterns. Patterns by sound is a huge pattern. There's syntax patterns, and there's semantic or meaning patterns. And they're the intrinsic part of the knowledge we have to build within children. Now, sound can be tricky. In The Wizard of Oz, Frank Baum was having trouble coming up with a country for the wizard to live in. And he was just about distraught. He had lost kind of creative thought for a moment. And he looked over, he writes this himself, he looked over at his filing cabinet and he saw A to F, G to N, O to Z. And he thought, oh, O to Z, Oz. And that's where he got his idea for Oz, and it's been like that ever since. Now, little children in grade 1 write was, W-O-Z, for was. And so we want them to stop doing that, so we can tell them the story about Frank Baum, tell them that Oz is the only word in English that has that sound that is spelt that way. And to help them with was, give them a pattern with wall, ball, fall, call, so that it's in a sound pattern where the spelling is correct, and then that will help them remember. Now, myth number 3 is weekly spelling tests are great because spelling is a rote memorization process. I wanted to spell that myth. Spelling is actually a highly cognitive skill. It's about thinking. You're always thinking about words. And so what I want to give you is a spelling test. There's a space to write in the words on your handout. The first word is accommodate. I'm going to accommodate and give you time to just write it down quickly. It's on the first page of your handout. Just quickly, you will not be embarrassed and asked to spell it publicly. The second word is raccoon. I have a raccoon who visits our garbage nightly. He's the fattest raccoon in the neighborhood. The third word is broccoli. We encourage children to eat broccoli. And the last word is embarrass. I will not embarrass anyone by asking how many they got right. Now, here are the correct spellings, and you can mark your own. I would suggest that any troubles you had spelling these words, unless you're a great speller, you get everything right, any troubles you had would be related to double letters. Is that correct? You thought, do I double, do I not double? And that's what children would say too. Broccoli is the one that maybe gave you the most trouble. The reason for that is it's a borrowed word. We took it from Italian. We took it straight into English, spelled the Italian way, and there is no double L. And so that's the one that gives kids trouble. And that's the one they need to burden their memory with, not all the others. The others follow a pattern in doubling, which is the short words with short vowels have double letters. Many of them do. You can make a list. If the pattern is consonant, vowel, consonant, does that help? If you have R-A-B, consonant, vowel, consonant at the beginning of rabbit, then you double the B. That works for a lot of words. If you add endings to some words with short vowels, double. In all of the cases I gave you to spell, they had short vowels and they did double, apart from broccoli. So if you have hop and hopping, and you change it to hope with a long vowel, you have hope and hoping with no double. If you have tap and tapping, you have tape and taping with no double. This is in your handout. So how do we plan for this? How do we do all this with children? You say, Doreen, these are a few interesting activities, but how do we do this on a daily basis? Well, what really matters in spelling is the context. Writing is the context for spelling. Writing is the purpose. And we need to set a purpose to write, not a purpose to spell. Spelling is only in the editing and the cleanup. And writing's hard work. I thought that was that was the original tablet that they wrote on. And thinking is key. Thinking is always key in learning to spell. I've been working a lot with principals and teachers recently in Peel District on Richard Elmore's work on theories of action and problems of practice. And so I created a problem challenge of practice for you today to see if you can relate to this. A number of students do not spell well and do not apply what they know about spelling to their writing. When they edit their writing, they often cannot find misspelled words. Is that true of some of the children that you deal with? Yes. Okay. So here's the theory of action. And I really believe, I've lived this, I've taught this, and I really believe this works. If we encourage children to love words, notice how words work, learn about word patterns, and explore and question these patterns every day, then we will enable students to be successful when they apply this word knowledge to their writing and when they edit their own writing and the writing of others. And what often happens with children who are poor spellers is they can't find their mistakes. So they can't correct them if they can't find them. So here's 6 ways that you can help them. My book has about 60 ways, but here are just 6. You can have children think about words, constantly think about words. You can have them become problem solvers with words, and I'll deal with each of these in turn. You can have them become problem creators by asking questions about words. You can have them play with words and riddles and puns. You can have them find out about origins of words, and you can have them engage in writing word narratives. These are the 6 things that you want children to do all the time. And if they do that, they will become wonderful, wonderful editors. So thinking about words, what do these words have in common on the left? What do they have in common on the left? They have short vowels. So what do we call those? Palindromes. They're palindromes. Spelled the same way forwards and backwards. The vowel in each case is short and it doubles. It's the same at the end. And you want children to notice these kinds of things about words. So when we get to the second column, what do these words have in common? And they all had 5 letters. These also have 5 letters. What else do they have?
S at the end.
Not all of them, but for a pattern, if I had put a different word in there instead of yacht, we could have done that. Yes. They have silent letters, yes. And so we want them, and they all actually have the vowel A. I was trying to create this list, and yes, now I'll take yacht out and put a word with S in. Good, thank you, Marilyn. Okay. So when they're problem solvers with words, one of the good things to do is to get them to make lists. So you ask them, do they think more words will end in EAT or ATE? So thumbs up. Thumbs up for those who think EAT will be the longest list. Thumbs up. Oh, wow, this is a gifted group. Okay, well, AT, not a single lonely person who, ATE actually is the longest list, huge list, because you get delineate, delegate, and so on, insinuate. The words go on and on and on and on and on. So a bright kid who was doing this said to me, okay, tell me a word with eat and ate in it. And so I'm looking for a lengthy word, multisyllabic, with eat at the beginning and ate at the end. And you know, when children ask you these questions, if the teacher can't come up with it, that's a problem. So I worked on this, and does anybody know? Beatificate. Oh. Oh, you came up with a second one. They didn't know that word, but that's great. If they'd had a more extensive vocabulary, we could have used beatificate.
What was the word?
Beatificate.
What can I tell you?
All grade 5 children know this word, Ron. I told you it was a gifted group. Anyway.
Catholic schools, they would.
That's fabulous. Okay. Well, I came up with create. That was the only one where they overlap. But actually, beatificate is a better word because eat's at the beginning and eight's at the end. Okay. Wow. Thank you, Marilyn. Now, it also helps with silent letters if you can link it to a letter with sound. So in signal, you hear the N, and sign, you don't. I would challenge children to come up with other words like that, like crumb and crumble, so that when they have a word that does make the sound, they can link it to the silent letter. And other words would be twice, 20, and twins would link to 2. And you just go on. Amnesia would link to mnemonic, and it goes on. And they love finding words like this because it's a word list. Now, asking questions about words. One kid asked, I wonder if we've how many compound words we have with land in them. And we made a Wordle off it. And we came up, I think, eventually with about 25, because we also started with words that began with land, not ending. There aren't as many that begin with land, like landfill and landlubber, but there's more that end with land, and we didn't get them all. But they really got into that. It's funny what sometimes they get excited about. They also love wordplay. So I'm going to do a knock-knock joke with you. I'll say knock-knock, you say who's there. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Amos.
Amos.
A mosquito, knock-knock. It keeps going, knock-knock.
Who's there?
Anna. Another mosquito. Knock-knock. Ray. Raid to get rid of all these mosquitoes. Now, children find this inordinately funny, much funnier than it is, much funnier than you think it is, but they'll play with this for a long time. They also love puns. They'll work with puns, all kinds of puns. They'll read books with puns in them, and they love riddles. So in a riddle, what did gingerbread put on their beds? Cookie sheets. Okay. And what do you call a rabbit dressed in plaid? Hopscotch. Okay. So I can tell that one because I'm Scottish origin. Okay. Word origins. I've put this in your handout. It's a great site. It's got surnames behind the name. Children aren't so interested in origins of actual words like I am, but you can get them interested, but they're certainly interested in their name. And this is a great site because it has names from all over the world where children can look up their surname and find out what it means. Find out that maybe if the last name is Acosta, that they were originally from somewhere who lived by the coast. And so on, and that Bissett was linked to fine linen and a weaver, and so on. And then borrowed words are always interesting. I talked about broccoli being borrowed. I told children recently that robot and polka were borrowed, and they were grade 5s. And for some reason, maybe they were into dance, they immediately invented a robot polka, which was extremely entertaining. And they researched polka music and polka dancing, but the robot polka really made it big time. And so this cited an interest in borrowed words. Now, word narratives are also interesting. 2,000 years ago, soldiers were paid in actual salt because it was the only way they could preserve food. And then they went to giving them an allowance for salt, and eventually they were paid with money. But the word for salt in Latin is sal. Those of you who are Latin scholars will know this. And the word for salary is salarium, so that if somebody says to you, you're worth your salt today, it means that you're really worthy of your payment and your salary, your wages. So that's kind of an interesting word narrative. Kids can invent much better ones. I invented this one. If a kid had invented it, it would be much more interesting. So you say, Doreen, well, okay, they're doing all this wonderful stuff. What are they learning when they're doing all this stuff? Well, what's interesting is they've got all kinds of transferable thinking skills while they're doing spelling this way. They're engaged all the time in accountable talk. They're talking about words. They're problem solving with words. They're inferring and they're making connections between and among words all the time. They're problem solving with words all the time. and they're making inquiry questions about words, and that's involved in critical thinking. So all of these sets of transferable skills are engaged when you're teaching spelling that way. And so it's really important to make the shift. And just to tell you something else, if you're absolutely married to the speller, oh dear, that's, okay, well I won't tell that story because my time is up. But anyway, oh dear, and I can't get it to stop, Larry, okay. There we go. My alarm went off. I've forgotten the story. Time does that to me. Okay, I'll come back. What really matters is we really want to develop children who can spell and understand language. It's not just good spellers we want, because I used to write on report cards, Jason has perfect scores on spelling tests. However, Jason must be encouraged to apply this to his writing. Now, what is the point of Jason getting perfect scores on spelling tests if he can't apply it to his writing? Because writing is the purpose. And so that was your earlier talk, Joey, was very germane to this, because we don't want to write things on report cards that are irrelevant. My favorite, I didn't bring it because my grandson took it back to Newfoundland, but when he was in grade 4, a teacher said that he should really improve his spelling and proofreading, and in this sentence there were 3 misspelled words. I thought it was classic, and I thought, well, maybe the teacher should too, maybe that's why he's having trouble. But anyway, we want children to make informed prediction about words, and the more you can teach them about words and how they work, the more they will make an informed prediction and not random guesses. And a parting thought, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And if you teach spelling this way, you will be training the mind to think. I remember the story. If you teach from a speller, it has 3,000 words from K to 6. The average child has at least 15,000 words of vocabulary at elementary school. So if you teach only from the speller, they're 12,000 words short. If you teach them patterns, and by the time they're an adult, they're 47,000 words short. If you teach them patterns and teach them how to apply these patterns to all the words and to generalize throughout the language, then you're enabling them to be successful spellers and writers. Thank you very much.